Let's get right to our panel now. Angela Rye is a political strategist. Dr. James Peterson is a contributor to thegrio.com, and Ryan Grimm, DC Bureau Chief for the Huffington Post. Welcome to all of you. I'm glad you're watching again, Ryan, behind you on the screen. Professor Peterson, we saw a lot of the president this weekend, a lengthy interview given to the New Republic, and that interview with Hillary Clinton on 60 Minutes. I see Republicans grumbling, complaining about the interview. Is that because it made Democrats seem like mature, well-mannered adults who are trying to actually get something done?
Well, yeah, I mean, for all of their critique about what they perceive as being a softball interview, I mean, have you ever seen a Republican politician on a Fox News interview? Certainly there's a double standard there in their mind. But at the end of the day here, I think that the President and Secretary Clinton being in the same space at the same time is an important sort of sense for the Democratic Party going forward. One, of the President's support of this Secretary of State and what she's done in terms of all the travel and all the impact she's had internationally. But two, it is looking forward a little bit. As much as we're loath to talk about 2016, it looks as if Hillary Clinton will be a very formidable candidate at that time.
Okay, Angela, let me read something from the interview the President gave the New Republic. He says at one point, and I'm quoting, "One of the biggest factors is going to be how the media shapes debates. If a Republican member of Congress is not punished on Fox News or by Rush Limbaugh for working with a Democrat on a bill of common interest, then you'll see more of them doing it." Now, the right is up in arms about this quote today. He had to know, the President had to know that was going to be the reaction, though, presumably. Would you agree?
Well, maybe he did know that it was going to be the reaction, but at the end of the day, it's absolutely true. We have to get to a place in this country where people are applauded for doing what's right. What you're seeing right now from the President is a shift from the audacity of hope to the audacity of conscious politics. And I think that the rest of the country's got to shift too. We have Republicans all over the country who are fighting against common sense politics, common sense solutions, and we just cannot do that. We literally cannot afford to do that right now.
But so many of these Republicans appear to be frightened by Rush Limbaugh, by the NRA, by Fox News. Isn't that true?
It's absolutely true. But again, we have to get to a point where we're not just accountable to Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and all of the other pundit stations and, you know, the types of propaganda that some of the people in the Republican Party put out. We have to get to the place where our elected officials are serving their constituencies in total, not just portions of the constituency.
I pray that was the case. Ryan, the President basically in the interview that he says he doesn't see his relationship with Republicans getting better until Republicans' relationships with Republicans get better. Does that mean basically, I guess, don't hold your breath for the next 4 years? I don't want to be pessimistic, but that's how it feels, doesn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they have a lot of issues they need to work out, and they're going to work those out internally over the next years, next 2 years. And I think Obama's right that until they get to a place where a Republican can have a constructive relationship with Obama and not pay a political price for it, then no Republicans are going to have constructive relationships with him, because, you know, politicians are very self-serving and self-interested folks. That's how they got to where they are. And there has to be somebody who has to kind of break the curse. There has to be a politician, a Republican, who steps forward, works with Obama on something. Maybe it'll be guns, maybe it'll be immigration. You know, we'll find out who works with him, who infuriates the base, infuriates Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and if he's still around out there, and survives and actually advances. You know, as soon as that happens, then it shows an alternative path to power for Republicans. Right. And that will enable Obama to then start having relationships again.
Yeah, he is still out there. I heard him this morning. Professor Peterson, let me play for you an exchange between NBC's David Gregory and Senator Jim DeMint on this topic of the President's vision versus that of Republicans. Listen to this, Professor Peterson.
That's something that Paul Ryan said. He said last year, the country will choose what happens in 2013. Right. And they did. So aren't we past the point of two different visions in choosing?
I don't think the country has chosen that.
So, Professor Peterson, the election went 51 to 47% with the President, 323 Electoral College votes to 206, but according to Jim DeMint, that didn't decide anything, right?
Well, this is the kind of the logic of the Republican Party that we've been wrestling with over the last several years. You know, former Senator DeMint is moving more into policy and lobbying and trying to influence the public discourse, and that's probably a pretty good space for him to live and breathe in.
But Professor Peterson, he ought to be attached to reality, surely.
Well, Martin, as you know, and as we've chronicled on this and on others on this network, reality is not the basis by which those on the far right always sort of draw their conclusions and create their ideas. And so, sadly, we can't expect that at this point in time. What I would say to all the Republicans is if you don't want to put stock in the presidential election, you really need to rethink what your relationship is to the American body politic overall.
Okay, well, Angela, you do get the sense from this interview that the president is literally done waiting for compromise. He tried that for 4 years. We see that he's now turning his campaign apparatus into a machine to sell his policies. Now, in your view, do you think that will be more effective as an approach towards achieving substantive legislation as compared with the first 4 years?
Well, yes, I think that there's absolutely a place for the public to play in the president's steps moving forward. He cannot continue to try to operate and do things in a way and then try to communicate to the American public later. That didn't necessarily work as well as I think the White House and the Obama administration had hoped the first 4 years. And so now they're going to what they do best. That's boots on the ground. That's messaging. They do it very well during campaigns. And I think we're going to see a whole lot happening in these next 4 years, or at least while the president has kind of the space to continue to make moves politically. I think that we'll also see, you know, the Republicans pushing back by not trying to win by communicating more with people of color or young people or even the elderly for that matter. Instead, they're going to make moves like what they've done in the Virginia state legislature, which is try to change the maps and how people's votes are counted. Absolutely. So we've got to keep moving forward in a way that says, you know, we the people, to use the president's term from the inaugural address.
Ryan, the president said that the Republicans have a fever, but if he won, that would break the fever, would it not? But Paul Ryan, well, he doesn't appear to have been affected at all, so maybe the fever hasn't broken for Paul Ryan and the Republicans.
No, they certainly still have a fever, but I guess we wouldn't have really expected the fever to break immediately. You know, and I laughed when I heard the president say that back in June or whenever it was during the campaign, but you know, maybe he's right. I mean, the fever can't go on forever. I mean, it has to break at some point. You know, either it breaks or their entire party breaks. You can't continue being a party that ignores, you know, national election results, as DeMint said that the party wants to do. You know, you can't go in and say if we win, then we have a mandate, but if we lose, then the other side doesn't have a mandate. That's, you know, you can only be divorced from reality for so many years. So, you know, whether it's takes another midterm or another presidential election, you know, at some point this fever's got to give, or it's going to kill the patient.
Well, they're doing pretty well. It's almost 3 months. Ryan Grimm, Angela Rye, and Dr. James Peterson, thank you all so much. Coming up, Paul Ryan versus the president. The battle lines are drawn. Stay with us.